stream underway. We've got a couple of games to get you caught up on. We've got Shaw versus Silverglen and Darth Link against Chriskelly, both of whom played game one of their matchups earlier in the week. And now we're just waiting on them to play game two. I believe Chriskelly just announced that he'll be playing game two tomorrow. It'll be evening for most of the country. Just having a little trouble loading up the old Twitch page here, so give me just a second while I figure out what's going on with that. All right. Seems to be loading up now. Oh, you're welcome, CRG, as I can finally get into Twitch here. Okay, so it looks like we're good. So let's get caught up on the action. So we watched four games last week. We saw Bastian Winkelhaus defeat Joe Olsen in both games there to put Team Europe ahead 4-3. Then we saw Chris Werfs pick up a win with his light side deck by 23 to get the lead in that matchup. And we saw Justin Desai take the lead in his matchup when his legend beat Tom's a stunning move. Tom has conceded game two of that matchup after losing by 29 in game one. So we're all tied up again at 4 points each. Now we're going to look at Chriskelly and Emil. We got Shaw and Justin. Werfs, we already mentioned, is ahead 1-0 in his matchup against Kieran. And Mishki and Stefan haven't played either of their games yet. They'll probably play both games at the same time. Hopefully that will all happen tomorrow. I don't know if we'll be able to live stream all of these games. We'll certainly try, but we may get some more replay links that we'll cover later in the week. But without any further ado, let's get going here. We've got two-time world champion Emil Wallen, Hall of Famer Darth Link, versus Chriskelly, NPC champion, design advocate for the Players Committee. Oh, and now I'm getting a network error. Let me try moving my laptop to the other side of the room. Yeah, looks like it's having internet issues on my laptop, so bear with me for just 1 second. We'll have to switch internet connections. All right, so we've got WAP and we've got TTO, it appears to be. All right, so he played operational as planned, and he picked Imperial Decree as his extra effect, which makes sense against WAP. You want to try and minimize that early ground damage as much as possible. It's going to take WAP, a turn or two to get into the throne room, which will give you, as a dark side player, probably 2 turns to get at least one system occupied, which is pretty easy, Endor, and then possibly get a second location to reduce the damage. Typically, they don't split up Panaka and the Queen very early on in the game, so they're only doing 2 damage anyway. You get one system, you can reduce that damage from 2 to 1, and then when they try and spread to get more locations to try and increase the damage to 4, by then you probably have at least 2 systems satisfied, so again you're cutting it back down to 2. Alright, looks like my laptop is back online here so I can see what's going on in the Twitch chat. As for WAP here, looks like, alright, so we're going Jedi business, so we're going to have some a cheaper Qui-Gon. Mace is going to have some more immunity to attrition, and you can go get Malastair, Mos Espa, or the Nightclub. Not sure if we'll be playing any of those in this deck, but definitely getting the Episode 1 lightsabers should be handy. Oh, we see he does have a Rick Ollie in ship here. That's a pretty good one to run just because while we'll need a new one on table, adds a destiny. That's the flip side of the other objective. But the ship itself is power 6. The WAP objective, when it's flipped, makes it power +2, so it's power 8. Immune to less than 5. Permanent pilot has got ability of 3, so you got a lot of good things working for you with that ship as well. Now it looks like we're going with Camino. So he's going to use, we'll take the long way, which is the one that once per game lets you get a Episode 1 system and or a Theed Palace leader. Theed Palace leaders mostly used for the queen. If you happen to already have her, you probably pull Panaka with it. And then he's going to grab Camino, which once per turn lets you get a Camino site. We've seen this with Tom Kelly last year in the OCS games. He usually uses it to pull the 2-0, so then you get a nice big activation bump off these two systems right away first turn, and you don't need to spend card slots on other pullers, such as like Wisa's for like Boss Nash Chambers or Speaks for the Jedi Council or anything like that. Between Walkling, your objective activating you, +1, the force your opponent's likely to give you, and then the 4 force you pretty much pull turn 1, you're in a pretty good spot. I mean, he's already activating 10 just from when he's sitting on the board, and he's going to add 4 more to that, plus get to use his objective a little bit for the first turn or two until he gets flipped to get some extra activation. We haven't featured WAP too much in our online streams. It's a solid deck, but it is more of a one-dimensional deck typically. You know, usually it's more focused on ground, kind of like Prophet or something like that, and has either a token, space package, or whatnot. It used to have a bit stronger space presence that we used to see more, but the Bravo Fighter packages seem to just have faded out. Alright, so Jerjerod's going to go to the bunker. He's got the first sector in hand. He used Jerjerod and got sector number 2. Now he's going to use the bunker's text to get Endor Shield. That'll take away the 2 icons from Endor. He'll pull Ozzel with that. Ozzel will back up Jerjerod just in case there's a random spy in the old WAP deck, or K2 droid or something. And then he'll draw a couple cards. So decent start, getting an extra sector out already, and now he probably has a good feel for, if he needs to dig through the rest of his force pile, looking for sector number 3 or TTO, based on those pulls. And there we see a Trade Federation Tactics, which will get him the Invisible Hand. This is certainly the new way that we see people building the deck, not so much using combat response anymore to go with the matching ships. They play this nice used Destiny 6 Interrupt. Well, this part is the lost part. But it cancels an attempt to use a weapon to target your capital ship, which is pretty huge because it's not limited in that aspect of it. And the lost part, you get to retarget and blow up there on target, which is really more of a hidden base counter. You don't really see that outside of that aspect. And then you've got getting the blockade support ship or the invisible hand. Most of us will see the invisible hand, especially with the stunning move and things like that. But now in TTO, it's also a solid capital ship you can put a couple people on or pair up with another combination of ship and pilot and have good, strong space presence that way. And then the blockade support ship as well, which deploys as a react. So kind of like a fly casual counter a little bit, but with much better additional text. And there is 5s. So we talked about him having a spy. There's our clone trooper and spy. He's one of the only ones that WAP can play. And right off the bat, he's got him. And he's got a General Kenobi. He'll activate a force. Now, Kenobi himself says if he's alone or with a clone, so he's a clone trooper, he can activate a force or add one to a just drawn destiny. Once per game, he can go get a clone or a lightsaber, but he already has the lightsaber in hand. He also could use Jedi Business to get a lightsaber. So Kenobi's text is a little redundant there, but certainly going for big air right here. He's going to take top into hand. He's going to swing at Jerjerod. And this is certainly going to slow the TTO deck down, not being able to pull its remaining sectors, but there's only one sector left, and if Emil happened to know it was in his force pile and drew for it, otherwise he's just going to have to maybe force push for it later. They are also known to play No Escape in TTO decks, so he could, if he happens to get No Escape in the next turn or so, he can No Escape Jerjerod back into hand and then redeploy him. So the Moth is hit. He draws a 1 for Battle Destiny, which he did not use Kenobi to add 1 to. Interesting. This guy's not immune to attrition anyway, so he's going to end up getting lost. But, you know, just from going through the motions, you want to maximize your options. Could have added 1 to Kenobi there, then he'd have no battle damage. So if by some miracle he had guys who were immune or anything, that would have come into play. Also, by controlling the bunker, he now suspends and/or shield, and Emil did not use a second pull that I recall seeing with and/or shield. I believe he only got Ozzel. Looking back through the chat, that's what it looks like here too. Speaking of the chat, it looks like the two of them, from what we've heard from other people talking about, were having quite a bit of back and forth between them, a good banter, which unfortunately we don't get on the replay. Can't see the chat log. And there is no escape. So we did talk about the possibility of that. Chriskelly got lucky with the opening hand spy, and Emil got lucky with the opening hand no escape. So now he'll get the invisible hand out with Gergerod as a pilot, and now he'll go look for that last sector, which he did find. He'll see if TTO is in there when he verifies for that. It's still there, so now he'll get that out. And now his Death Star is operational. So because TTO is on the table, the second sector here is going to add a Battle Destiny. You may, remember it's an optional that you can click on. He can also start doing some damage now, but he's got to find another system. So whether Chriskelly wants to not put Camino out to give his opponent a system to move the Death Star to start causing damage, seems likely, which is also probably why he didn't play it last turn. He didn't want his opponent having a location to go to. He's going to make him kind of find his own location, which he did already. So now that Kashyyyka's hit the table, I expect we'll see everything shift over. Yep, that moves to Kashyyyk. I'll move the Death Star over as well. So this has enough ability to draw a Destiny. The sector adds 1, creating a second Battle Destiny there. 8 power. The Moth forfeits for 6, but the ship is also immune to less than 5. And if he gets Grievous on the table, he'll add another Battle Destiny. So now no need to hesitate. Now he can put the Camino out. He also pulled relatively unprotected and got that as well. This is the one that's going to limit the TTO damage to 1 force while you occupy 2 battlegrounds or opponent's site. So going here has another additional benefit in that he'll probably end up moving back out to the docking bay, unless he needs the force, and he'll stay in the bunker. But more likely, and Obi will just end up moving back outside. All right. All right, we'll see the Queen come down. He looks for Jedi business, nothing there. But he did find the site, so he'll spend the force and get the 2-0 site there. During your deploy phase, your clone may move to a site you occupy for free. So your clone here. So if you happen to have a clone at that site, you can basically bounce him anywhere to another site you occupy. And Darkside's text, Fets may move to and from here for free. Probably unlikely unless you happen to use Ellis or something. If you initiate battle, add a Destiny. So pretty much a site that's going to be mostly ignored, but good activation jump. He'll activate an extra force with the objective, spend some of that force, deploy a clone or 2 with the Queen, and then I'm sure we'll see them move over to the 1-0 and possibly see Kenobi move out to the docking bay. They both move for free because of the text on the hallway. So Endor's shield will no longer be suspended. Notice it didn't change Chriskelly's activation, though. I mean, 13 is the right number, but maybe I just didn't. Maybe I missed it bumping it up to 15 for this and then back down to 13. All right. He'll pull battle plan, make him pay for the drain in space, which I'm sure Emil will. He'll also do 1 damage from the TTO. All right, Chris is going to top deck. And he's going to lose Mace and Maz Kanata. And then he'll take the 1 force loss from TTO. Gergerud goes and looks for a Sector or a Super Laser and just sees a whole bunch of High Destiny cards. Typically, High Destiny cards are great. However, against WAP, the flip side of the objective lets them cancel those High Destiny draws. This is usually, in my experience, the kind of game that one person wins by about 10. Usually it comes down to who gets Decree or Relatively Unprotected out earlier. They both got them out from like turn 1. So, you know, that type of game could go down to a very low grind unless somebody happens to win a big battle and cause some overflow. If Lightside tries to go to space and they get outpowered and overwhelmed, not literally overwhelmed, just overwhelmed with extra guys and battle destinies and things, then Darkside would win by a little bit more. Conversely, if they come to the ground to try and contest the throne room or just to satisfy battle order for a turn or two, that would be Lightside's opportunity to get in a bit of a beatdown there, cause some extra force loss, and kind of tilt the game slightly in their favor. Lightside is going to space here now that the objective is flipped. So they do get some benefits from the flip side of the objective. As we mentioned earlier, the ship's immune to less than 5, but it does get a power bump here, power +2. It also cancels the immunity to attrition of these droid starships, which this ship is. So this ship is no longer, the Visible Hand is no longer immune to attrition. It's a text on the flip side of the objective you don't see very often because it typically only applies to like the droid starfighters and things. But at the Invisible Hand, it's, it meets the criteria. But this is the text that's important here. If you just drew Destiny greater than 3, if opponent drew it, you can use a force to cancel that Destiny draw. So Emil's going to need, he's probably not playing Justice in this deck. We saw Dark Time earlier. That's what he drew for Battle Destiny. So that's probably a card that Chris is going to want to grab, so that way he can continue to cancel Destinies throughout the game. And Chris is going to stack, looks like, both ships at the same system. He's got 16 power now. He's got decent forfeit. He's got a barrier in hand. He's getting around battle order, so now he's threatening some good damage here. He's got drain of 1, drain of 2. This is a drain of 1 because this is Qui-Gon's lightsaber, which does not add. It adds to lightsaber combat. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1 from the objective would be 5 damage. Oh, looks like we're going to get a revert here. So he can force push before paying 3 to drain for battle plan. That's a nice revert. He's going to top deck 2. He loses Solo and the Odin Nestler combo. And then there's the 1 force loss from the TTO. And it's a Master Qui-Gon off the top. Now we've got Tarkin up there with Thrawn, so that's adding an additional Destiny. And there's Mara's in her ship. Dylan, thank you for renewing your subscription. Congratulations on 6 months. Right. He also added Kyrkanos to the Invisible Hand. He'll be able to cancel interrupts. And he's going to move over to Camino in front, and we'll see if he moves the Death Star to follow, I would imagine. Yep. Image of the Dark Lord will also make this drain here -1. So this ship here, you've got the Death Star adding a Destiny, you've got Tarkin adding a Destiny, and this is Virtual Thrawn, I believe. Yeah, so he's not adding a destiny. So you got 3 battle destiny here, though. Kirkanos able to cancel interrupts. Decent forfeit. You don't need Gergerod anymore. So he'll cover 6. So not exactly the ideal situation for light side to battle into. He's going to put Mace down to back up the Queen. No lightsaber or anything there. Okay, so it looks like he's moving some people around. He knows he moved Anakin to a passenger spot because he's planning on moving the ship, and I guess he's concerned about gravity shadow. We did see a super laser in there as well, so he was running the super laser, but he won't need it. And there is the gravity shadow. So he moves the Bravo fighter first, and he does draw a 5. If Anakin had been piloting, that would have made the ship lost. So we'll cover that sequence here for we'll recap that sequence for a second. Okay, so gravity shadow. If your ship has just begun to move, you draw destiny. If it's greater than pilot's ability, if there's multiple pilots on a ship, it defaults to the highest ability character. The starship must return to its original location and may not move this turn. If the destiny equals their ability, the ship is lost. So drawing greater than 2, not all that hard, but there are a number of 5s in his deck. Drawing a 5 makes the entire ship lost. Drawing greater than 5 to stop the ship from moving. Well, he did have a bunch of 6s, so there's still a decent chance of that happening between the Emperors that we saw and the Trade Federation tactics and stuff. So you move Anakin from the pilot seat to a passenger seat, so now it's just the permanent pilot, which in this case is Rick, who's ability 3. So if he draws a 3, not very many of them in the deck. Certainly the only ones may be Kirkanos and the Invisible Hand. Invisible Hand's a 2. Both the ships are 2s. So Kirkanos is a 3. It's probably not too many other cards in the deck that are 3s. That would make the ship immediately lost, so at least the ship will get to stay. I don't know necessarily whether that's good or bad. But he does move the Bravo fighter first. Now this is the ship that's stuck. It's always the downside when you're trying to split up your ships. If you get hit with gravity shadows, now you're vulnerable in 2 places. And Chris, without a lot in his hand to back it up, he's pretty much going to have to save these remaining force after he puts Anakin back into the pilot seat. And he's going to move the Queen for free. Looks like we're going to get a revert here. You move 2 here using land speed for free, so anybody moves for free. So yeah, he moves that guy over, the other clone. So this is where you have to be concerned for Chris with this ship possibly getting beat up a little bit. He's got 2 force loss from TTO. He's going to get drained for 2 at Endor, which Emil has to pay for. Now Chris does have 2 cards in hand that could certainly help keep him out of trouble. The first being a Rebel Barrier. Anything else that gets deployed, he could prevent from battling. The second one here is the Jedi Mind Trick. If opponent initiated battle or force drain, use 2 force or it's cancelled. It's kind of a mirror of projective telepathy, which Darkseid has had for a while, ever since the Jabba's Palace expansion. We've got a new Jedi Mind Trick virtual card, also on a Jabba's Palace card. So if Emil spends too much force deploying stuff, it's possible that the Jedi Mind Trick could either cause the battle to be canceled, or at least prevent him from having to move anybody or deploy or draw any extra cards. So Chris could be in some trouble here, but he could also have some outs. Okay, so there we've got Zuckuss going after Bravo Fighter. And Chris is going to play the barrier to stop it from battling. Now, Bravo Fighter has this other text here, which we don't also get to look at. So sure, let's take a peek at that. During battle, target a starship with no characters piloting. Draw Destiny. If Destiny greater than defense value, it's hit. Well, he's going to put Dr. E piloting it, but otherwise he would just have to draw greater than 3, and he could hit Zuckuss. So even though his Destiny would be canceled, there's a decent chance. Oh, lateral damage on the Rick Starfighter. Oh, he deployed that on the wrong system, though. Looks like we're going to get a Destiny draw. And it's going to be immediately canceled. I'm sure we're going to get a revert, because I can't imagine that's what Emil meant to do. Yeah, there's the revert. So when you reach lateral damage, you cancel it. If you deploy it on the system that the ship is already at, then the draw happens immediately. Alright, so he's going to deploy it over on Endor. So now the ship is power 0, so it's 13 to 0. He does play the Jedi Mind Trick to at least make him spend 2 more force. It's 2 less cards he can use to draw, or to spend to move other ships around. Alright, so we're going to get an Imperial Command to add a Destiny with Thrawn. Tarkin's going to add a Battle Destiny, and then he's going to use... He didn't use the Sector? Yeah, he missed that. He didn't use the Sector. It's a declared action at either the system it orbits or the Death Star 2. The Death Star's at Camino, because we did the direct damage. So he missed an extra Destiny here. I wonder... Did he not have enough? He has enough cards to draw. So I wonder if he didn't realize it, that was a May that he has to declare. Alright, so the first one gets canceled. He's going to redraw that with Tarkin. There's Destiny number 2. But yeah, he's got enough ability. Command adds 1. Tarkin adds 1. The Sector adds 1. He should be drawing 4 Battle Destiny there. So he's got a total of 8, plus whatever the card is on top of his deck. Yeah, that's going to be... It should have been a 5. He didn't play a Dark Time earlier, because I guess Chris still had force left, and he wanted to possibly wait for him to spend it, so the card couldn't get grabbed. So that's a 17 battle damage, and Chris is peeling cards here. Anakin forfeits for 8, so he's got to lose 9 cards in battle damage here. That's certainly going to tip the scales in Emil's favor before he loses Anakin and then the ship, I guess. Yep, there goes Anakin. So let's recap what he lost here. He peeled from Used Pile, Leadership, Mace's Lightsaber, Jedi Mind Trick, Rebel Barrier, Yoda. And then off the top of his reserve deck went Alter, Jedi Lev, Panaka, and a projection of a Skywalker. None of those cards are necessarily mission critical. Mace's Lightsaber would be to add 1 to Force Drains, but just losing 9 Force in general is pretty bad. Oh, and then he doesn't lose the ship. I guess he does want him getting the lateral damage back, or maybe he has other designs. So he'll cause 1 force loss there. He'll drain for 1 at the sector. Gik gets lost. That could be important. Imperial Arrest Order goes from hand. So the Death Star docking bay is still floating somewhere. There's a Jedi lightsaber. We get another drain over here. So the non-unique lightsaber here does add 1 to Force drains, so that'll make up for it. And Chris is going to spend most of his force again. He's going to drop this oddball. It's another clone we don't get to see too often. Let's see what he does. He's a pilot. Excellent. Droid starfighters, power and forfeit during battle. Add or subtract one from a just drawn even destiny. Okay, so that's either you or your opponent. Oddball doesn't like even destinies. Okay. Kind of curious. I guess he wanted to draw some cards and save some of his force. So he moves in front of Zuckuss. He has 7 ability. Bravo Fighter's got 4, and Rick Ollie has 3, plus Oddball gives it 2 more. He's also only getting 1 Battle Destiny here, so he'll move over and block a drain at 2 and protect his ship instead of moving away to go to Endor and like cancel lateral damage and stuff. Alright, so Emil's in the driver's seat here. Some decent destinies remaining in the reserve deck. If he has any other characters left, wants to throw an extra guy down for forfeit or something. The drain at Camino is only 1. If the opponent has 2 clones on table, force drain -1 here, so he's got 2 clones. And it looks like everything is just going to chase. He'll flip-flop the ships. Oh, he's going to move Zuckuss over to Endor. Okay. And then he'll move the Death Star to Kashyyyk. Well, looks like he's just going to flip-flop all his ships around and do the shuffle. So we'll have Zuckuss go protect the lateral damage. Have Mara go sit at the weaker drain. But Chris is fairly low on cards already now after taking that overflow. So he's going to put Walkling out of play to retrieve a force, just to give him a 5 that he can track, plus an extra destiny, just an extra card left in life force. And Emil draws a bunch. Right, so we got 1 direct damage, drain 1 and 1 on the ground. So Chris is causing 3 damage a turn. So now it's about cutting differential, we think. He's a little bit behind. He's got 15 cards left. Emil currently has 24. He'll be down to 22 after this damage goes through. So now it's just about mitigating damage as much as possible. We'll find out if Emil has a second copy of Gravity Shadow, because that could be game over. Alright, so he did set up the 5, so he'll draw that. Quite a mercenary. He'll use that to cancel the lateral damage, giving Rick his power and forfeit back. And then he'll pay the extra 2 and move Bravo Fighter over as well. And then we'll see him draw a few cards, I'm sure. The longer Chris can stay in space, the longer he doesn't have to pay to drain, which will allow him to maximize his damage potential as he gets lower and lower on life force. And of course, the opposite of that is if Emil doesn't really have anywhere to go on the ground. He does have, there's this 1 Naboo site that's open, that if he had anybody, he could go there to get his free damage. Otherwise, he's just going to basically pay 3 to do, he's paying 6 to do 3 damage, and then he'll do 1 more from TTO. So he's spending 6 to do 4 a turn, whereas Chris is doing 3 a turn without paying for any of it. Emil still comes out ahead on that arrangement for a while, until he gets to a point where he can no longer afford to pay for all of it. But with that extra battle damage, probably going to be just out of reach for Chris to catch up to that. Yeah, certainly paying the extra +1 to move to Endor to cancel the lateral damage does get a little costly. Yep, so Emil's just going to drain. He flip-flops his ships around and then draws up a bunch of cards, probably looking for either another ship or more, just another ground character or two. Chris will do his 3 damage. And I expect Emil to lose most of these cards from hand. Yep, Trade Federation Tactics. Oh. So we got a Trade Federation Tactics. A Super Laser and an Emperor. And then he drains for 0 at the site, to which Emil then plays Set for Stun to cancel the force drain of 0. These guys were having a good time. Alright, so we got BB-8 in Black Squadron 1. Really only does anything if Poe is aboard. That's going to pick up Obi-Wan, and Obi's going to then take off here. Having a Jedi at a system does prevent Overwhelmed. He also moves Bravo Fighter to the Death Star, where it can get an additional force drain in, possibly. Oh, the docking bay is still in there. Chris opts not to grab the command. He's going to save those 2 force. Alright, so we'll see Emil here. He'll spend his 6 force to cause his 3 damage. Oh, 4 damage. Just continue to grind Chris down, who's now got less than 10 cards left. He's down to 7 total. Chris does spread out on the ground, trying to maximize as much damage as he can. See if he can get that how low he can get that number. Emil obviously not battling this turn because he didn't save any destiny. He does drop Maul. Now let's take a peek at Tup. During your move phase, fire a weapon at an undercover spy. Permanent weapon is Clone Sniper Rifle. Target a character for free. Target hit if Destiny +2 greater than defense value. And he does have a Sorry About the Mess in his hand. So he could Sorry About the Mess Maul if he knows if he has a 5 left. And this is... They only lose 2 force if you control the battleground site. So he'd only be losing 1 because he'd still have Decree. So he deploys the card he would lose instead, hoping maybe he can take some of his opponent's stuff with him. Alright, so Chris will do his drains first. Emil's going to control that one as well. There's a drain of 1. And let me know objective damage. Now he'll add 1 to the drain with the lightsaber. And there goes the Dark Time, putting him down to 12. He is going to go for the Sorry About the Mess and try and hit Maul here. And he's just going to miss. Well, if he doesn't battle, he could just move Rex back over and stand fast, but he is going to battle instead and let his guys get picked off. Just trying to think, he could, obviously he could maximize damage potential if he just moves Rex back over, and he can move the Queen back to the throne room. Would it matter? Probably not, because he's only going to get, if he's going to get drained for 2, 1, and then 1 ping damage, he's going to lose 4 next turn anyway. So he would have to move to also block a drain. Whether that's Bravo Fighter or one of these other ships. It doesn't quite have enough force left to do it. So I think if he could get one more round of drains in. Alright, so Maul swings and hits both characters. And this will pretty much be game over for Chriskelly. But a loss by 12, not bad. Certainly something that's manageable for game number 2. And looking at their deck choices for game number 2, it should be another interesting game. No spoilers. So yeah, so looks like it's going to be about 12, unless Emil can put either of those cards in his hand back to increase the damage further. Lightside actually wins the battle there, so Chris can't just draw up. He is going to spend his last force and move one of his ships over to block the bigger drain. See if he can't squeeze out one last sequence of damage here. And Emil did save a few force in his reserve deck, so that tells me that it's likely he's about to battle this turn. He's got P59. Okay. If he hits him, it's over, because he'll cause 2 force loss. And that seems like a safe bet. He activates a force with Kenobi. Yep, there's the 7 that he had tracked. So P59 could have just shot with that tracked 7 that he drew for Weapon Destiny with Maul. But again, these guys just having a little fun with each other, right? So he's going to draw the 7, which will get canceled. Then he'll draw the 5. Chriskelly's got no hand, so he's got no tricks up his sleeve or anything like that he's got to worry about. And both of those guys will be lost. And this guy is armor 4. So as long as this card left in the reserve deck is a 4, which I'm pretty sure it is. Wasn't exactly paying attention to how he tracked and set up his destinies the previous turn, but I think that's so that's going to hit Rex. That's going to cause 2 force loss, and that will end the game. That'll be a win by 12 for Darth Link there. All right, so congratulations to Emil on picking up the win for game number 1. These guys are playing game number 2 on Sunday at, I think they said 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 11:30 European time, 2:30 on the West Coast, or somewhere there in between. So Chris will need to rally back from a 12-point loss. Again, certainly not out of the realm of possibilities.